Namaste, everybody. Welcome to today's program. Today's program will be the cause of suffering and disease, and I want to welcome you all to Facebook Live. It's an honor to be here, and mostly an honor to have you listening to this program. I'd like to just begin by chanting Om 3 times. If you are at home or you're anywhere but driving, please join me. Om. Om. Namaste. So welcome again to everybody to today's program live on Facebook. Today I'd like to talk to you about the cause of suffering and the cause of disease. I think that it's human nature to wish to avoid suffering, and so many of the decisions that we make in our lives is really for that purpose, to avoid suffering. It's inherent within us, it's deeply embedded within us to want to avoid suffering. We could say that life itself, in order for life to exist, that we have to avoid suffering. And we don't want to walk into a fire, we don't want to walk off of a cliff. We make many decisions that are for the purposes of sustaining ourselves and sustaining our lives. And much of that is out of the wisdom of being able to discern the difference between what it is that is harmonious for us and what it is that is disharmonious for us, what is going to cause ease for us and what is going to cause suffering for us. Today I want to talk about the process through which we create disease and the process through which we create our own suffering. You know, when we talk about suffering and we talk about disease, we generally tend to think about the many symptoms that a person might have. A person might have cancer, a person might have arthritis, a person might have multiple sclerosis, or maybe a person is just suffering with something non-physical, something more mental. We suffer emotionally with fear, worry, nervousness, and anxiety, anger. These are all ways in which we tend to suffer. Why does that happen? Well, from an Ayurvedic perspective, if we look at the cause of suffering and the cause of disease, it really begins with our own actions. We say that disease begins when we misuse our senses. What does that really mean? Well, you can view or you can think about your senses as portals or gateways into body, mind, and consciousness. If you take in that which is harmonious for you, then your body, your physiology, will naturally respond in a healthy way. In other words, let's just use your sense of taste for a moment. If you eat the foods that are healthy for you, that's going to affect your physiology in a positive way. But if you eat foods that are unhealthy for you, your physiology is disturbed in a negative way. Now, in Western medicine, we examine the physiology of the body and we can record in great detail about the secretions of enzymes and hormones. But in Ayurvedic physiology, we look at it simply as the effect that the food or our senses has on the 3 doshas within our bodies. The 3 doshas are Vata and Pitta and Kapha. And these 3 doshas govern the physiology of your body. If you take in that which is harmonious for you, then the doshas will remain healthy, the physiology of your body will remain healthy, and you will prevent disease. So for instance, if you take in junk food, you know that you're going to either get an upset stomach, or if that junk food maybe is too much sugar, it may cause diabetes. Now, this is a disturbance in physiology. If you take in something that is able to disturb your physiology and it causes suffering, then you can also take in something that is going to be beneficial to your physiology and will help to heal you. And that's really a major principle behind Ayurveda. And that is that if you take in that which is harmonious for you, then you'll support healing physiology. You'll support well-being within yourself. So your senses are like portals or gateways, but there's not only one. We are not only what we eat. We are also what we smell, what we see, what we hear, and what we touch. And all of these are affecting our physiology. I like to say that where there's harmony, there is health. And where there's disharmony, there is disease. If you take in that which is harmonious, your body will respond beautifully. If you take in what is disharmonious, your body will respond with suffering. So, for instance, just as you can take in junk food, you can also take in junk smells, junk sights, junk sounds, and junk touch. All of these disturb your physiology. But if junk disturbs your physiology, then if you take in that which is harmonious for you, it's going to heal your physiology. It's going to optimize your physiology, and you'll be able to reach your full potential. You know, in many ways, we're a lot like plants. If a plant receives everything that it needs, if it receives the proper soil, if it receives the nutrients and the sunlight and the temperature, and it's cared well for, then it's going to have a beautiful, deep, rich color. It's going to have many blossoms. Likewise, if you receive through your five senses that which is harmonious for you, then you'll also have a deep, rich color, and you'll also fully blossom as a human being. That's the beauty of Ayurveda. When you live harmoniously through your five senses, you blossom. You blossom physically with optimum health, emotionally with peace of mind. You even blossom spiritually because you, in that state of balance, have the sense of connectedness to all of creation. And that's a beautiful feeling, and it's what really brings that deep sense of inner peace to each person. So the journey in Ayurveda is very much about utilizing your senses properly, eating properly, learning what aromas are going to support you to be healthy, what sights are going to support you to be healthy. For instance, if you look upon movies that are violent and you take those violent images in, you know that when you watch a movie, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases. You know that this is disturbing your physiology. But how do you feel when you are walking through a rose garden or a flower garden and what you're taking in through your eyes is just peaceful? In other words, give some thought to your visual environment every day. Not just what movies you watch or what television you watch, but what about your offices where you work? What about your car? Is your car clean, or is your car going to be cluttered? Does your office have fresh flowers in it? What kinds of things can you do to create an optimum visual environment and an optimum aromatic environment? Could you use some essential oils that are going to create peace and harmony, as well as, of course, a healthy sound environment for yourself? What do you listen to? What kinds of sounds are affecting you all the time? What are the lyrics of the music that you're listening to? Are they supporting well-being, or are they maybe supporting you to be in a more fearful place? What are you listening to on television? Are you listening to talk radio that is making you all fearful? Are you listening to the news all the time and that's making you angry or fearful? What do you listen to? You have control over your environment, and Ayurveda asks you to exert that control. Ayurveda asks you to create an environment that is going to support your well-being. This is really perhaps the most important thing that you can do in terms of your well-being, is to create a positive environment. Think about the people who talk to you. What kind of words are they saying to you? That's also going to affect what you hear. That's going to affect your physiology. Are you receiving loving communication, or is the communication that you're receiving very critical? Now, that's not to say that sometimes we don't benefit from critical feedback from the world, but is it being delivered in a loving, kind way? I love what Swami Shivananda would say. Swami Shivananda would say, speak the truth, but do so sweetly. So when you are communicating to someone and someone is communicating to you, this is a time to be conscious of the energy of that communication. So we take the world in through our ears, through our eyes, through our nose, through our mouth. We even take the world in through our skin, through what we touch, through how we're touched. What do you touch, and how are you touched, and are you taking care of your tactile environment? Now, we all know that there's junk touch and there's healthy touch. If you're taking in junk touch, well, perhaps the most junky touch that you could take in is to be hit. This would be a terrible touch. This is really going to disturb your physiology. Violence, physical violence. is not only physically disturbing, but it's emotionally disturbing. Well, if you can be disturbed by disharmonious touch, then you can be healed by harmonious touch. Because if you are hugged, that also changes your physiology. If you're hugged in a loving, kind way, a respectful way, that also changes your physiology. It lowers your blood pressure. It slows down your heartbeat. It reduces fear. It reduces anxiety. Are you creating a healthy tactile environment around you? Again, if you take in through your five senses all that is harmonious for you, then you'll blossom physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that means that you'll reach your full potential. And what is your full potential? You want to activate the physiology of your body to heal whatever complaints that you have on a physical level. The physiology of the mind, when it's optimum, is peaceful, it's quiet. And the physiology of consciousness is clear, so that you're able to realize your connectedness with all of creation. This is the journey of Ayurveda. It is physical, it is emotional, and it is spiritual. Health is more than just the absence of physical symptoms. There's all these different layers. Now, I've talked a lot about why, or rather how we misuse our senses, but why do we do that? Well, Ayurveda says that it's a tendency to misuse our senses. It's a tendency to take in junk through our mouth and our nose and our ears and our eyes, and even through our sense of touch. That our intellect, which is that part of us that makes choices, right? You wake up in the morning and you have a choice of what you're going to eat for breakfast. You do have a choice of what you're going to listen to. You do have a choice over your visual environment. You have all of these choices. And our intellect is making that choice. But our intellect often fails us. It often makes the choice that is disharmonious. It makes the choice that is going to lead to suffering. Why would we do this to ourselves? Why would we make the choice to stay up too late and then be tired in the morning? Why would we make the choice to sleep in rather than get up and go for a walk or meditate in the morning and take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves? Why would we make the choice to get up in the morning and rush off to work? But yet we do this. We even make the choices to watch movies that are disharmonious and listen to music that is disharmonious. We do this because it brings us a short-term sense of pleasure, even though it does not bring us long-term well-being. The failure of the intellect is based on the idea that your intellect is taking in information or input from your senses. And your senses are only interested in that which is going to bring the greatest amount of pleasure in this moment, and that which will avoid suffering in this moment. It's only interested in the present moment. In Ayurveda and yoga, we say that the senses are the agent of the ego. And so it's the ego that is controlling our decisions. The ego and the senses make decisions that are going to lead to short-term pleasure, even if it results in long-term suffering. On the other hand, our intellect is also making choices. Our intellect is also making choices based on additional input, and that input comes from our soul. It comes from a deeper place. We can say from our higher self, from that place that rises above the short-term pleasures. It's a place that is interested more in harmony than in pleasure. It's a place that is interested more in peace and bliss than it is in, again, those short-term ecstatic experiences. So when we listen to our soul's voice, we make choices that are harmonious. We make the choice to get up in the morning. We make the choice to go to bed early. We make the choice to eat healthy foods and to use all of our senses properly. But we can only make that choice when we can listen to our soul's voice and not the voice of our ego or senses. But how are we going to listen to our soul's voice? This is very difficult. The soul whispers, whereas the senses scream. So the senses are screaming all the time about what you should do right now for pleasure. right? On Fridays, sometimes on Friday nights, your senses are screaming to you. You've worked hard all day. You've worked hard all week. Now it's time to go out and party. Let's go have some fun. And we do disharmonious things sometimes because our senses are telling our intellect and our mind that you deserve it, that you should do all of these things. Yet it creates long-term suffering for us. So we have to become really quiet in order to listen to our soul's voice, because the soul speaks in whispers. It says, go to bed early, wake up early and meditate, eat the vegetables, not the pizza, and so many other words of wisdom for us. I hope you could hear that on my whispers on YouTube and on Facebook. But it's whispering to us, and so many times we have so much noise inside our head that we are unable to hear the whispers of our soul. So then how do we learn to listen? Well, we have to become quiet. And this is a whole lifestyle that Ayurveda teaches. It's a lifestyle of becoming quiet enough to listen to your soul's voice. Now, obviously, meditation is a wonderful way to quiet down, to take some time. But if you're running at 100 miles an hour, it could be difficult to slow down to 5 miles an hour, all right? Because you're used to running at such a high rate of speed. Your mind is used to being so busy. So you might have to gradually slow down. And that's really where the guidance of an Ayurvedic doctor or a clinical Ayurvedic specialist or an Ayurvedic health counselor can support you. They will support you to gradually slow down over time in order to live a more sustainable life, because that's really what we seek. We're seeking to live a sustainable life, and the way we live right now through our senses is not sustainable. We are literally killing ourselves. We are literally killing ourselves. And we're making those choices to kill ourselves because we're not listening to our soul's voice. So to listen to our soul's voice, we have to quiet down. Now, this brings us to an even deeper cause of disease. Ayurveda says that the reason our intellect fails us is because our mind is caught up in the dramas of the world. It's caught up in this idea that we are bound by time and by motion. Now, what that means to us in terms of everyday life is that the faster we move, the faster our bodies age. The faster our mind moves especially affects the stress within us, and the faster our bodies age, and ultimately will cause our bodies to break down. But this concept, which is in Sanskrit is called parinam, it means transformation. And it's the transformation that occurs when we engage in the world, when we engage in the world of drama. That transformation is what creates time, because if something was a certain way and now it is different, it took time in order to make that transformation. In other words, this concept in Ayurveda and in yoga is saying to us that once we engage the world, once we are forgetting, once we're engaged in this world, that we're caught up in time. Time is motion, and motion wears us out. Time is stress, and stress wears us out. And what time does is it creates a future and a past. And we spend a tremendous amount of time in the future, thinking about how the future can be the way we want it to be. We spend a lot of time worrying about it, planning for it, and that is stressful. We also spend a lot of time in the past. And we spend a lot of time in the past regretting what happened, or being perhaps in grief, in a state of grief over things we lost or things we did. We may feel guilty. So we live so much of our time in the future and in the past, and very rarely are we right here, right now. Because if we're right here, right now, in this moment, and it doesn't matter what's going on with you, in this moment, everything is perfect. In this moment, there's no stress. All your stress is about what's going to happen in the future or what happened in the past. But right now, no, there's really not. There's really no stress right now. There is no drama right now, if you can bring yourself to the here and now, to this moment, you come to the realization that everything's perfect. That everything's perfect. Oh, I know. I know you're thinking, yeah, but you don't know what's going on in my life. I've got this stress with my kids and I've got this stress with my work. Yes, that's all true. I don't deny any of that. You do. And I have this stress with my finances and this stress with my relationship. I know, you do. And we all do who are engaged in this world. And yet, if you take this moment and truly engage it, you realize that at this moment, everything is perfect. Because if you found yourself sitting on the edge of a cliff overlooking a beautiful sunset, and you got that moment of, aha, look at how beautiful this moment is, then you would get what I'm saying right now. Because in that moment, when you're looking at that sunset, you still have all your future problems and you still have all your past traumas. You're just not engaging them. You're not denying them. It's just that you found yourself in the moment. And you find yourself in the moment when you look into the eyes of someone you love. And that's another moment where you get it, where you say, you know what? All that other stuff is just drama. What matters is this moment, this peace, this love. The present moment is a moment of peace. It is a moment of love. And it's a moment in which the heart opens and expands. And that is what brings healing. That's what brings health. That is what optimizes our nature. This is really the beauty of Ayurveda, is that it teaches us how to eradicate the suffering. That if we can come to this present moment, our intellect will be quiet, and our intellect will be able to then listen to the whispers of our soul. Our mind will be quiet. Our intellect will listen to the whispers of the soul, and our senses will begin to make the decisions that are healthy and harmonious for us. And so it is a cascade of events that begins with knowing the present moment, being in the present moment, sustaining the present moment. That's why it's a lifestyle. That's why it's a way of being. People sometimes say Ayurveda is a lifestyle. It's not a medicine, and they'd be absolutely right. It is a lifestyle of living harmoniously in this moment that leads us to be able to hear the inner wisdom that guides our senses. And that's when we're empowered to eat properly. That's right. That's when we make the healthy decision. That's when we make the healthy decision in every aspect of our lives. If you live harmoniously and you make that decision, you'll always be guided to exactly where you need to be. And that's to a place of peace, harmony, and wellness. Now, these three causes of disease that I've talked about so far are very important. This transformation that occurs due to the movement of the mind, the failure of the intellect, and the misuse of our senses. But there's one cause of disease that is greater than all of these. There is one cause of disease that is the cause of why we engage the world so deeply with such attachment. And this is because we forget our true nature. When we forget our true nature as spirit, that is the first domino to fall. When you forget your true nature as spirit, then who are you? You say to yourself, well, I'm this body. I'm this mind. I'm my history. I'm my past. I'm my future. Because I have forgotten my true nature as spirit. And what do I mean by spirit? I mean that part of you that realizes the interconnectedness of all of creation. That part of you that is connected to all of creation. That part of you that is me. That part of me that is you. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about spirit. It is what unites and connects us all together. When you forget that, then you live as a separate being. And in separation, all suffering occurs. In separation, we begin to protect ourselves. We begin to think about only ourselves. Because when I feel separate, then I'm worried about me, not you. I'm worried about my family, not yours. I'm worried about my community, not your community. I'm worried about my country, not your country. And we have more and more division, more and more separation, and more suffering. And it comes from that place of forgetting that we are all one. And it's this memory. It's this memory that we strive so hard to realize in Ayurveda and in yoga. And when we do, we are filled with love. Because when I realize that you are me, how can I not love you if I love me? How can I not care for you if I care for me? When I realize that your family is my family, how can I not care for your family when I care for my family? And when I realize that your country is my country, how can I not care for your country? We say in Ayurveda and we say in yoga that separation is an illusion. It comes from forgetting. It comes from forgetting. So this is the journey that we are all on together. And as you go forward in your journey, it is my greatest hope, first of all, that you will know the least amount of suffering. And that you will come to transcend your suffering by learning to use your senses properly. That you'll learn to use your senses properly and actually make that healthy choice by quieting your mind, coming to the present moment, ultimately remembering your true nature of spirit. Do that, and the doshas will take care of themselves. Do that, and the doshas, these energies in your body that govern your physiology, will remain perfectly balanced. And there will be no sickness. There will be no illness. Your Agni will be healthy. You will not have ama. You will have no ama. That's the toxin we talk about in Ayurveda that is the end result of poor digestion. But you do what I just said today and everything else will fall apart. Everything else will fall in place, not fall apart. Everything else will fall in place. So I wish you all much joy and much health on your continuing journey. And so I chant Om. Oh, by the way, before I close, if you have any questions about today's talk and you want to reach me, you're welcome to email me at drh@ayurvedacollege.com. And of course, you're welcome to check out our website and all of our programs at ayurvedacollege.com. That's part of the California College of Ayurveda. Many blessings to you all. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste, everybody. Have a beautiful day and a healthy life.